was a 1,600 mile, 155-day journey south to north of Madagascar via the interior, summiting the 8 highest mountains, held at gunpoint by the military, had to avoid the bandits, contracted the deadliest strain of malaria, crossed crocodile-infested rivers, insects everywhere. We've got jungle noises, we've got ants right here, like loads of them using the ridge of my banana leaf, my bed. We need to get off the beaten track. We need to set out what we planned to do, which was take on adventures. And in that element, it's do or die, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it probably, because I think we've all got that survival instinct in us, right? And I think people will be surprised at what they're actually able to do if they take all options away.
So welcome, Ash, to turning your adversity into an asset with Raymond Taylor. It's very refreshing to have a guest like you on today, because not to diminish in any way anybody else's story, but it's as though a lot of people have been through some very difficult things from a traumatic point of view, maybe that are outside of their control, or maybe even self-induced trauma, even such as myself. I get quite a lot of praise these days for not going to prison and being an arsehole. It's like, I should have really been doing that in the first place. But thanks for giving me, the respect for turning that around. I appreciate that. But the things you've done are incredible, and
appreciate that.
I would probably say the most incredible things that have been on the podcast to date.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Honestly.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Mind-blowing things. So as a little quick introduction, and I'm going to have to pull out notes here, because this isn't something you can keep from the top of your mind.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, of course, I know a few, but some of these things are insane. So just to give everybody a little bit of an insight into Ash Dykes here, who's an explorer, extreme athlete, motivational speaker, 3 times world record holder, not just 1, but 3.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to diving into that. I'd be happy with 1 at this point. And you've been all over the news. You've been on Joe Rogan's podcast recently, BBC News and everything like that. I won't mention the specific details of what you've done, because I'll let you share that story.
Okay.
But walked a 4,000-mile journey, and I believe that wasn't just the once, because there was a couple of trips that you've been on. But essentially, you've been on some extreme adventures. I don't know if you would call them an adventure, but to me they would. But whether or not
missions,
yes, okay, that's a better word for it. But just so many things that just blow my mind. One of them was, I read this, I don't know if this is true because this came from Wikipedia, so you never really know, but
right.
Actually, I will ask you this, and then I'll give you a quick overview of some of the other things, just because I know that some people don't like to necessarily blow their own trumpet, so I want to do it for you, because you got a lot of trumpets to blow here. But did the locals refer to you as the lonely snow leopard?
Yes, they did.
That's amazing. That just reminds me of what's the Leonardo DiCaprio film?
The Revenant.
Yeah. Just imagine you in that scenario.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, it wasn't too dissimilar.
Really,
apart from the attack from the bear. Jeez.
And then actually interesting. We've sort of referencing films. When I was reading more about your story, I was also thinking about the recent film with Will Smith, the Emancipation, where he has to fight the crocodile. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it. No,
we should see it, because we'll go into that. But you've walked across. Well, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But you've got a book called Mission Impossible.
Mission Possible.
That one. Yeah. Mission Possible. Of course.
And that was, I turned that around because the first trip that I did, all trips that I did really, but that first one was said to be impossible.
Interesting. When was that book released?
That was 2017.
Do you know what? I heard of that book.
Yeah.
Before now, knowing you now. So,
okay.
But I didn't draw the connection.
Yeah. Sorry, Tom Cruise.
Yes, this is better though. He's a doubter.
Yeah.
Come on, let's bring some positivity to this. You've spoken on stages around the world, 3 times TED Talks. You know, I've done 1. All right, and I was pretty impressed by that. You triple everything.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to diving into how you're able to do so much of these things. Yeah, like I said, Guinness World Record holder. And you've got a new TV show coming up.
Yeah.
The Great Wall.
That's right.
So anyway, that amongst facing bears, wolves, all sorts of crazy stuff, I think that's enough of an introduction. I've got plenty more actually. My notes go on. Like,
Nice.
You know, I can't stop.
Oh, hey.
So now I think it's time for you to share a bit. So there's a little introduction to
Quality.
Dykes. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the one question that was popping into my mind.
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, it's a long answer, but I guess we've got time.
Let's go for it. I want to hear a long answer.
Yeah, I guess just to give a little bit of context and background, I'm from North Wales. So I was living in a small town called Old Colwyn. Okay. No one knows of it, really.
No. I've got a good friend of mine who's from North Wales, from a place called Mould. Anywhere near that?
Mouldy, yeah, not far.
Okay.
Not far. I think about 30 minutes. I could be wrong. 30-minute drive away. But it's a sleepy place, you know, there's not much happening. Beautiful. You got your mountains, lakes, forests, all of that, but it's a very sleepy place. No one really makes it out of that small community. You know, the schools are bog standard, the colleges are bog standard. And I kind of clocked onto that at a young age, you know. I knew that everyone that kept making it out of Wales seemed to come out of Cardiff, you know, the city of Cardiff, or nearby cities, Manchester, London. And it just seemed that, you know, around this area, people were just stuck in the rut. You know, the rat race, keeping up with the Joneses and, you know, factory work or just jobs that didn't really interest me. And I knew that from a young age, but I just didn't really know how to articulate it. You know, and I'd be watching stuff like David Attenborough documentaries and not wanting to be watching it from a TV, but wanting to get out there amongst it. You know, my parents, you know, I don't come from a financial background at all, but my parents were very positive people. And I guess the upbringing with them was always, you know, very chirpy, very positive, but also they instilled this hard work, like they're not going to help me financially. You know, if you want something in life, you've got to work hard to get it. And my mind was just ticking over as the years went by. I went to high school. I then went on to college. And it was in this college course that I think it was in between year 1 and year 2. The rest of the students had it figured out. You know, they were going on to the military or they were going on to university. And it was on that college course I realized I was more of a hands-on practical learner, kinesthetic learner in a way. And I couldn't stand being sat in the classroom, having a teacher lecture to me on a board, writing stuff down on the chalkboard or the whiteboard. It went in one way, out the other. And I was like, I'm not learning this way. How can I possibly go to university to continue this for another 3 years? If that's how you learn, then great. I figured out that that's not how I was learning. And I thought, how do I learn? You know, and on that course, there was lots of, as much as there was the academic side, there was a lot of practical elements to it as well. Rock climbing, avalanche awareness, winter mountaineering, survival, all of this sort of stuff. And I always found I was ahead of the class when it came to this stuff. I would make a mistake, I would learn from that, and I'd never make that same mistake twice, you know? And I was kind of like, okay, I found my niche, I found how I learn. And then after that, I was kind of like, right, I decided I wasn't going to either the military or university. I only had 2 options effectively, and neither of those I liked. So I continued working in a fish and chip shop on about £3.10 an hour.
Humble beginnings is always an important start.
Great, isn't it? Yeah. And I went from there to waiting on, and then waiting on to lifeguarding. I had a bicycle and I was cycling to and from work every day after college. And now I was racking up over 240 hours of work per month, raising like good amounts of funds. I was on much better pay now as a lifeguard, and I was just save. I was very routine. I was very disciplined. I wouldn't really go on nights out. I wouldn't go out to restaurants. I wouldn't get takeaways. You know, I was saving every single penny because I knew that £3 for this cheap meal could be 2 nights worth of accommodation in Southeast Asia. So that was my frame of thought. And I was kind of like, I want to go traveling. I want to see what my career options are. I want to develop myself as a person. I want to face adversity, see how I handle certain scenarios that could be embarrassing or dangerous, learn from different people that I would meet along the way, and see where it gets me. And that was it. That's how it originally started. And after raising the funds and meeting a friend who also wanted to travel with me, set off at age 19, you know, still a teenager, went straight to China. 2 weeks went by in China. I absolutely loved it, but I found I was very much on the beaten track, sharing the same stories, photos, and experiences as everyone else, which was great. It meant that I met people from all over the world, but there was nothing new, you know. I don't know if you've seen The Beach, the movie.
I was just thinking that. I was going to bring it up.
Right. And I love, there's a saying that he says in that movie that I'm like, oh my God, he's bang on. People travel thousands of miles just to wind up doing the same damn thing. Yeah. And you go to a hostel and you get fucked. You have a night out, you come back, you're hungover, you watch movies on the sort of hostel cinema room, eating noodles. And I'm just like, that's, you know, hanging around with other Brits or Americans.
You may as well go down Weatherspoons.
You may as well, yeah. You may as well have not left. You're just having a night out in a different club in a different country. And, you know, me and my friend, we did get trapped in that a little bit. And then...
Did you find a secret map?
Oh, almost. Hey, almost. No, ours came from the inspiration of not having enough money for the bus.
Right, okay.
And that
draw
was
your own map.
Yeah, we were kind of like, right, you know, we need to get off the beaten track. We need to set out what we planned to do, which was take on adventures, mix and mingle with the locals, find out their culture, their tradition. And it was actually when we left China, we went to Cambodia, and me and my friend, we were sulking on the Mekong riverbank. We'd spent loads of money at that point. I say lots of money, it probably wasn't a lot, but for then I was on a shoestring budget, very little money. And we were spending it fast on these buses, these touristic buses that travel overland through the night, so you don't get to see the country and the scenery. You're watching a movie on the bus with the curtains drawn at nighttime, you know, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. And I said to my friend, I said, fuck it, let's get a bicycle. I know we don't have money, but let's get the cheapest bicycle we can find. Let's fucking cycle. And that adventure, I believe, was the catalyst to everything else that came. We literally said, okay, deal, let's search for a bike. We found a bicycle that was just absolutely horrendous. It cost us no more than $10. It had no pump. We had no puncture repair kit. The bike had no gears, no suspension. We found string on the side of the road that we used to strap our rucksack onto the bike. Wow. Onto the back of the bike with. We had a non-waterproof tent, cost a couple of dollars, and we set off. We had to pay 10, I forgot what the local currency was, 10 dong, I think it was, for 10 minutes in an internet cafe, because I didn't have a smartphone, we didn't have any technology with us. We took like a little camera, and we researched the route that we wanted to cycle, and we just wrote down on a piece of paper different names of towns that we wanted to come across. And then along the route, which was over 1,100 miles, we would try to pronounce it to the locals. And when we got close enough, they would then pronounce it correct for us and then just point us in the right direction. So we didn't even have a map. We just had like names written down.
Crazy.
We were, you know, chased by dogs, hit by mopeds, dodged by lorries. The bikes broke over 17 times, but we made it. And that, from then, I was just like, right, this is it. I found my niche. I found my passion. Let's go.
I think it's common in a lot of people's stories. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, he just set out and, you know, walked 4,000 miles, which is obviously the thing that you broke the record for, right? Yeah. But it's usually a progressive thing where you're building confidence along the way. You know, you do this and you think, oh my God, I cannot believe I've done that. Yeah. So I wonder what next I can do. And next 100%. I can do. I was just talking on the way up there. I just thought I'd mention it when we was getting up in the lift, how embarrassed I am now I was actually late to this podcast and I live 10 minutes away because the Uber kept on cancelling on me and couldn't find me. And then you managed to get on a bicycle and travel 1,100 miles. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm too privileged. I'm too privileged. I need to go to China. I need to get a bicycle. And I need to sort myself out. And I won't be late next time.
Yeah.
So what happened from there then? What was that? How long did it take you to go, I need another hit of this?
Oh, honestly, I think once we finished, it was 1-2 days before we, you know, because we were just drinking Red Bull and noodles, which cost us about 10-15 pence.
That's interesting. Because I was thinking, that was going to be one of my questions, like how are you able to physically endure this kind of and I thought you was going to be, well, you probably are nowadays, I should imagine, developing through this, you know, peak performance kind of progression through life.
Yes.
But
now it's all changed.
It's all changed now. Okay. I was going to say you should have had some vigorous routine or something to be able to get ready for that. But you did that through Red Bulls and so I guess
no sleep. The last day we cycled 39 hours straight, literally all day, all night, all the way through the following day.
How did that have a physical? Did that have a physical effect on you?
It did, yeah. I actually didn't know it was possible, but I actually drifted off. I dozed off ever so slightly while cycling. And it was weird because I swayed into the road, but my back tyre hit my friend's front tyre. He was cycling behind me, which woke me up seconds before one of the road trains effectively went past.
And you didn't think, do you know what? I've been cycling for a day, maybe time for a kip. What was the driver to keep?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Obsessively going.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Because it's not like
my friend.
You didn't have a deadline, did you?
I think we did.
Right, between you. Okay.
Yeah, I think when I spoke to my friend, we sort of questioned, why did we do that? 39. That was over 200 miles on those bicycles. You know, the pedals would fall off. And we'd have to ask a local to stop because we didn't have any tools, nothing with us. And I think it was a visa issue. I think we had to hurry up because the visa was about to expire. And
right.
I think that, but I also do think there was an ego element where we were just like, fuck it, let's smash this. Yeah.
And what was the physical after when you stopped? Was there a crash? Was there a burnout? Or was there a release? Was there
a bit of everything? Yeah, it was everything. I remember sort of being so sleep deprived that it's weird I say this. It was almost like there was a third person with us. And my friend weirdly agrees as well. He's kind of like, yeah, it's almost like there was someone else. Like, I don't see it as just me and him. I see it as me, him, and someone else. And then I say, maybe that was because the camera, because we were trying to record and we took photos. But, you know, I remember dozing off when I was cycling. I remember I stood my bike up and rested my head on the seat and I started sleeping and my knees buckled and that's what woke me up. And then we would just like, shake, we would jump, you know, Red Bull, back on the bikes, keep cycling. But when we got to the city, when we got to the finish point, Hanoi, up north of Vietnam, we had cycled all of Cambodia and the entire length of Vietnam up to this point. We were turned down by 7 different hostels and guest houses.
What was that?
I think it was because we just looked like druggies. We looked horrendous.
Wow.
Because cycling through the day,
I felt every backpacker in that sort of hostile environment looked like druggies.
This was a different level. I think it was the mosquito spray of the night mixed with the sunscreen during the day, and so our skin turned blue. And then we had these black bags under our eyes because we hadn't slept for effectively almost 2 days up to this point. Eyes were bloodshot because we didn't take no sunglasses, and so the dust off the road just damaged our eyes. Our hair was like sticking out with a bit of a beard, and we had like living flies still trapped, and we would just rock up with our bicycles, blue skin, eyes like wide open, you know, red, bloodshot. And I think they just kept saying no to us. And we were
Did
like,
you not try and explain? No,
we
it's
did.
okay. We're just adventurers.
We were desperate. At that point, we were desperate. I remember just almost like we went to, I think it was called Lotteria, which is kind of their version of a KFC, if you like. We were just sat in there. It was 45 hours up to now with no sleep. So it was 39 hours to cycle, 45 hours with no sleep. And we were like, I need to fucking find a place now. Otherwise, I'm going to just fall asleep here. We desperately, and some old lady took pity on us and she took us in. And then we slept then for like over 13 hours.
A local lady?
A local lady, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So she was really cool. I think she just saw we were in a state and we weren't on drugs. We just cycled. Yeah. I think she just believed us that we had cycled from Cambodia.
I bet you went out like a light.
The best, yeah. Gone. And then it was from that point we were like, I said to my friend, I was 19, and I said, wow, I was so buzzed up on that first journey that I said, can you imagine at the end of my days, at the end of my life, having this world map and having lines across different countries from where I walked or hitchhiked or cycled, or, you know, and it's kind of heading in that direction, crazy enough. It was just an afterthought.
Is that your goal now?
Not necessarily the goal, but I think it's a good life to lead by. If I could make it happen, you know, meet up with people, rack up all of these experiences, enjoy this one life we have, and explore this one world we live in, you know, and create memories and share the experiences along the way as well, which isn't what I was doing at the beginning. I wasn't on any social media.
Yeah. Well, have you heard of that documentary? I'm sure you probably have, of the guy from the 70s who kind of claims to have travelled every country in the world on his push bike.
No, but I can believe it.
Yeah, but there was obviously no proof, so it's arguable whether he did or not. But there was a lot of people that said, no, we remember this guy.
Got you.
From all the countries, and there's a couple of pictures of him in random places.
Yeah.
All black and white.
Has to have been someone who has cycled.
And he's old, and he essentially, he did it from young to, you know, from 20 to 70 or something.
Yeah, got you. Wow. Every country.
He claimed, well, people claim he has told them. I don't think it's like a third party.
Got
It's
you.
an elusive character who just really wants to do it, you know?
Yeah,
Doesn't do it for the...
Because there've been people who race around the world on their bicycles.
No, I think he just wanted to do it and
Just
didn't even document it, you know? Because I guess, you know, back in those times, there wasn't really a way of documenting
Off
it.
you go.
Even in your times, you're mentioning, you know, it was just a camera.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
you're in that state, I guess it's probably not the sort of time you pull out for a selfie either.
Yeah,
So-
it's not, because you don't think anyone's going to see it apart from your parents,
Yeah.
apart from your family and yourself, you know? So I actually used it more as I was lazy. I didn't like homework in school. I didn't like any of that. So when people were saying, "Oh, you should take a journal and you should write in it," I was like, the last thing I want to do is sit down and write in my journal. It felt like homework. So I thought the alternate of that is to actually bring out a camera.
I bet you're
and
so glad you did that, though. 'cause
And I'm
obviously
glad,
the
yeah.
footage and stuff that you
Yeah,
got now.
like it's really bad. It's 310. You know, you get like 8K now, don't you?
Yeah,
It was 310p, I think it's called,
Right.
right? It's a really small box standard. But yeah, it still captures
Enough to
your
paint a
emotions.
picture.
Yeah, for sure.
So when was the next sort of quest, the next mission?
The next after that, I think we went about a week before we jumped onto the next. And it's funny you say about the map going back to the beach, because when I was in Shanghai, my first 2 week stint traveling, when I first left home, we rocked up to a small hostel. It was 18-bed dormitory, and it was £9, which was like really expensive. I was like, £9 per night. It's like 18 other people in the room. But Shanghai's an expensive place. And there was this guy called Adam Daigle, and I just got talking to him and saying that we're going to go to Southeast Asia next. And he was like, man, there's this this was in 2010. And he was there saying that there's this amazing place called Pai. And he got this map of Thailand out. And he pointed to, like, it's a very nice place now. People know about it. They go there. Yeah, it's north of Thailand near Chiang Mai or Chiang Rai. It's about 80 to 100 kilometers from Chiang Mai. Just in the jungle, right next to Myanmar there. And he said there's a really nice place. Not many tourists are on this.
I've been to Chiang Mai. I haven't been to...
Yeah, got
Pai,
you.
obviously.
Did you hear of Pai?
No.
It's one of those. It's one of
But
those.
I was one of the ones that were just on that beaten track.
Right,
you know?
okay, yeah, got you.
I wasn't drinking and stuff. I was, traveling, but I was just on
Yeah.
the tourist trap, just on the same circuits.
Got you.
I think I did 5 countries in Asia in like 3 months, just...
Okay, yeah. But, it's great though.
Still
Life
great fun, and
experience,
it's still
isn't it?
life-changing.
Absolutely,
But definitely not. I wasn't looking for those crazy things at the time. But
exactly. It depends what you're there for, doesn't it?
To me, that was an adventure in itself. Obviously coming
And
from
it is.
prison and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just being... like you mentioned, like the overnight bus and the overnight trains.
Yeah.
Even though the curtains were closed and stuff, just even though the adventure of that for me was like, oh, this is cool. This is
Perspective, isn't it?
Yeah,
It is perspective. Like one journey to a person that isn't that great could be a life experience for someone else.
I remember the overnight boat that was taking us across the islands. I went to I did do a bit of traveling around Thailand when I was in there, like Koh Tao, Koh Phangan, Koh Lak, all these were different, and they'd take you on the boat between. And I remember just at night, walking out 3 a.m, just seeing like the ocean and just all the water coming out from the back of the boat and just being like, wow, even though I'm not sightseeing, but just even that as an experience for me was big. Because
I even went to Thailand 3 months ago.
Okay.
Phuket. That's what I've 2 weeks. Phuket. Okay. Wakeboarding,
and
Muay
that's
Thai.
Really touristy, right?
Yeah, and I loved
Brits.
it. Yeah. So I'm at that stage of my life where I love the extremes, but I also love the luxury and the comfort.
Okay. You're a bit older now, and you've done it all a bit now. Once you've become the lonely snow leopard, you're like, I've done that now. Give me a bed.
It's definitely having that healthy balance now that I've met. A little bit later on in life, now that I've pushed myself to such extremes, no routine, no sleep, Red Bull, all of this sort of stuff, risk in my life. Now it's, the missions that I go on, it's attention to detail, it's meticulous planning, it's a big team. It's on this latest one, big film crew, backed by government, huge budget.
Yeah.
Whereas the earlier days,
you and a bike. Tell us about the transition in the middle. So where was the point where you was like, I want to become an adventurer. I want to be doing these missions. I want to do this as a profession. I'm going to stop drinking the Red Bull, pick up the water, all these things. Where did that happen?
So after the Vietnam cycle, we went over to a place called Pai because a guy recommended it in Shanghai. So I was like, let's go to Pai. And we were sort of on the border of Myanmar there, Pai is. Okay. And I remember we just came across this local Thai guy with a machete. And he was like the Thai Rambo. He had the actual bandana wrapped around. And we got talking. He spoke a little bit of English. And he said, look, do you want to go on a wild adventure? He said that there's a Burmese hill tribe trying to migrate across to Thailand. Well, they're not trying to, they will. They're coming over to Thailand. But he knows them and he goes to visit them all the time. And I'm like, right, okay. And he was like, we will teach you how to survive in the jungle. They don't speak any English, but they'll take you under their wing. It'll be a hell of an adventure. I don't know what really was in it for him. Like, yes, we gave him a bit of money afterwards because we were like, that was a fucking cool adventure. But most people would have declined that, right? A Thai guy on the edge of a jungle with a machete. Let's go for an adventure. You'd be a little bit like,
And what made you say yeah?
I think it was me and my friend.
Just the thrill of it.
And we were just like, risk nothing, gain nothing. We were all about that mentality. And we were like, let's just go with it. This is the kind of adventure that we wanted. We wanted to face things that made us feel a little bit uncomfortable. And we always agreed with each other that when those times come, let's roll with it. As long as it's not too reckless, where our life could be at risk, let's just fucking roll with it. Even if we're like, don't even know if it's a great idea. And we did, and we looked at each other and we knew we had that sort of like we've been wanting something like this and it's happened. Let's say yes. And we did. And we went through the jungle, machete in hand, hacked our way through. They were teaching us how to hunt, how to gather, how to build rafts and shelter using natural resources. Berries off the bush that once you pop them and squeeze them, rub them into your skin, they act like a mosquito repellent. And then we ended up coming across this Burmese hill tribe who took us under their wing. And it wasn't long. It was 3-4 nights. But it was one of those where I realized, that saying, become comfortable with the uncomfortable. It was one of those where, we would makeshift a shelter using bamboo and banana leaves. Banana leaves was above us on this bamboo construct. And it was on a slant so that if it rained, the water would run off. And then the banana leaves would act as our bedding as well. And I remember waking up one night. We had the fire on because the smoke would keep away the mosquitoes and any other insects. And I remember waking up and I woke up and I saw these big, they were almost like an inch long red ants just marching down the banana leaf. And I remember the first night that made me uncomfortable. I didn't like that. I was a bit like, fucking hell.
I'll be honest, the fact there's no aircon would have made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, right. It was hot. It was humid. We've got insects everywhere. We've got jungle noises. We've got ants right here, like loads of them using the ridge of my banana leaf, my bed. But by night 2, night 3, I remember waking up, seeing them again and thought, fuck it, they're not bothered with me being here. I'm not going to disturb them. I went back to sleep. It was one of those that I really started to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Being wet or being too hot or being dirty or having insects around me, pulling leeches off and flicking them and then going back to sleep.
And that's interesting how that was over just 4 days. Have you heard of like the elastic band analogy? There's like an analogy where you have an elastic band tied to your stomach and it's around like a lamppost, or they say a tree in your scenario. Right. An elastic band tied to a tree, and you try and move forward, but the elastic band has that tension that holds you back. And that's obviously the resistance that a lot of us feel when we're feeling uncomfortable, and it's what keeps a lot of people stuck, because even if they do take another step forward, the resistance gets tighter, pulls them back to what they used to, back in their comfort zone. But it only takes one extra step sometimes for that elastic band to snap, propel you forward, and then you realise that resistance is gone, and actually it wasn't as bad as you thought, and you're in a good place. So those 4 days sound like you snapped your elastic band. And
not fully, but I definitely snapped a few elastic bands. And I left that jungle curious as to what else I could do and what other scenarios I could face to make me better as a person, to help me grow and develop. Because I knew now that my peers were going to university and to the military. And so I didn't see traveling as just sort of a long form holiday, which most people, assume it is. And it kind of was, but what I was trying to get from it was I was trying to learn and develop myself so much that I would almost be comfortable with anything that life threw at me once I got back home. I would leave a boy, I would return a man, having faced crazy amount of adversities and different experiences, that whatever life throws at me, I'm ready. I face similar, maybe in a different way, but I feel more prepared now that I have left.
Quick question, sort of side note, diving into the future again quickly before we go back to the story. Have you been approached by like the SAS or anyone like that and said, we need you?
I've had messages like that.
Yeah.
I've had people who have been in the SAS or Special Forces and the Marines, and they've said we could do with a guy like you.
Friends have gone to military, and I thought, hang on a minute, that would be a pretty good fit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's and I did when I was 20. It was when I temporarily came back home. I looked into the SAS reserves because you have to spend a certain amount of years in the army before you can go into the SAS, or you do SAS reserves and then onto the SAS. And I passed physical training for that. And I remember speaking to the guy on the phone, because this was very early steps. And I remember speaking to the main guy on the phone again, once I'd come back, and I said, this is the scores that I got for the run, for the push-ups, for the pull-ups, all of that. And he also said that this is great and your fitness is there, your mindset is there, but you also sound like a free spirit. So be careful with what you decide to do. And I remember that was kind of like, hey, you're right. He was pretty much saying that this is it. You've got what it takes potentially, but you will be ordered. You will have to do as we say. And right now you're kind of doing stuff. This was after my Vietnam cycle, the Burmese Hill Tribe, all of the other adventures. And he was kind of like, you've done hardcore stuff by yourself. Are you ready to do hardcore stuff?
It's quite
under someone's order.
To share that with you, actually, because you think that they would be like, get in, and then you figure that out for yourself. But
and at the beginning, he was kind of like, get in, but then, I don't know, something changed, and he was kind of, once he said that, I took a step back, and I did think, and I was kind of like, maybe he's right, maybe I can do just as hardcore stuff or learn just as many different skills, but do it via my own way. Maybe I don't learn survival skills, for example, in the military. Maybe I learn from tribal communities. Maybe I don't learn about adversity, through like sort of the brotherhood and being out in the field. Maybe I learn it through being solo, being alone, the vulnerability of being followed by a pack of wolves. And I have to make all the decisions and motivate myself. There's no one there to pick me up and give me that speech. And all of this was going, and I was only young, and I didn't know at this point that adventure was going to be my career, by the way. So I've done the Burmese Hill Tribe. I've now travelled across parts of Australia. I've cycled down south of Australia. I then worked as a fruit picker up north of Australia.
To extend the visa, right?
To extend the visa, because I thought I was going to want to live there longer, but also to top up on funds. And so I was working there. We then did a hitchhike. Well, we tried to drive across North Australia, but we broke down in the outbacks, and it took us 13 hours before we saw another car, and that vehicle said, I'm not leaving you out here. North of Australia is very wild. There's lots of sort of Aboriginal communities. They don't really like the white people up there. So he literally stated that there's one not far from here. You're lucky they didn't find you. Hop in the truck. I'm not leaving you out here. And then it took us about a week then to hitchhike towards Cairns, sort of northeast. So we done that. I then went over to India, was doing trekking in the Himalayas illegally, couldn't afford no permit, so I decided to go off and try to avoid the Pakistan army that that controlled the border between India and Pakistan. It was pretty reckless, and I remember him warning me against it and saying you need to get a permit, but I was kind of like, no, the mountains are for everyone.
How much was the permit?
I don't know. It probably wasn't a lot. Looking back, it was stupid of me. But, I had to do a stupid thing like that to get to where I am now.
You grow in fear,
And I kind of thought he was fear-mongering at me at first. I thought he just wants money and there's no such thing as a permit. He's going to write down some paper thing and there you go. Yeah. But then he said, if you're going to go against my word and trek in those areas, and if you can't present a permit, they're going to be very angry. In which, if they are, you need to get down on your knees, put your thumbs behind your ears and say, I think it was Allah Harigbi repeatedly, which means, Lord, Allah have mercy on me.
Well, it reminds me of what's the Pirates of the Caribbean when they say parlay or whatever? Have you seen that?
Yeah, right.
Parlay, take me to your kids.
It was
good that he gave you that.
Shit.
It's good. Did that ever happen though?
It didn't happen.
Okay, but at least you had that in your back pocket. And it's like, okay,
yeah, and
I'm going to remember that
exactly.
phrase.
And I was pretty hesitant then because I thought, maybe he's not having his on. Maybe he's. But we went for it and we were okay. So we did lots of adventures like that. After that, for the next 2 years, I was then living in Thailand as a master scuba diving instructor and a Muay Thai fighter, which was a great lifestyle. It was Koh Tao. You've been to Koh Tao, haven't you? Did you do some scuba diving there?
I did actually, yeah.
Right? Enjoy it?
Yeah, but I only did couple of days.
Yeah, it's a good
got
place
a tattoo
though.
There. You won't be able to see it now, but I got a bamboo tattoo and all the traditional.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's a good place. I love Koh Tao. And Koh Lipe there, and it was a good lifestyle, scuba diving, fighting, training, discipline.
How long was you out there for?
2 years.
Cool.
2 years altogether. And during that 2 years, this is when the sort of adventure career started to...
I bet it was bubbling up inside. I want to do it again, kind of.
Yeah, as much of a great lifestyle as that was, I was 22. It's funny, I've got a friend, Steve-O, who he's about 10, 15 years older than me. And I met him out in Thailand, and he had his life sorted. He was a multi-millionaire. You know, he had everywhere where he traveled, he'd take a skip and rope, he'd take his forearm grip, he'd be on a juicing diet, full of energy. And I remember the day before I actually met him for the first time, me and my friend were counting pennies to see if we can go from Koh Tao to Koh Samui. You know how cheap it is to island hop. And we were actively seeing if we could afford to get to the next island, and we would put ourselves in a hideous sort of hostel. And I remember Steve, one of those days, saying that a lot of people want to start off with their dessert and they will eventually have to face their main meal and their starter. And it was like, what order do you want to do that in? Do you want to have your starter first and then your main, and then you get to enjoy the dessert once you've put in all the hard work? That's how he sort of put it in his terminology of life. You know, do you want to live this high life of being a scuba diver, Muay Thai fighter, effectively a beach bum on an island where people come here when they retire, but you're now living it at the crucial years where you should be grinding. And then later on in life, when those people have put on the hard work, they then come here and they've got their retirement to enjoy everything. Whereas you're then grinding. And I agreed, but I also disagreed. It's one of those where it's, you know, I also love the saying, the biggest danger in life is that, the biggest danger in life is not doing what you want to do now in the bet that you can buy yourself the freedom to do it later. You know, so who is ever guaranteed retirement? If you're not doing something that you want to do now, and you say, I'll do it in 10, 20 years, everything changes. Your mindset changes. I wouldn't cycle Vietnam now without a puncture repair
That's
kit.
actually such a, I mean, and you're probably looking figuratively, you know, maybe 10, 15 years in the future, but actually some people have the mindset of, I'll do it when I'm retired from my work, when I'm 70.
Yeah.
And I think,
Like
why would you want to do it then?
90% of people think like that, right?
And that pension age like increases. And I'm thinking, what are you going to, you're not going to even want to do that when you're that age.
You're not going to do the world's highest bungee jump. You're not going to eat tarantula.
All you're going to do is probably go to Tenerife and sit in a sun lounge, right?
Yeah, and enjoy your 5-star look, which is very nice.
And then wait for your inevitable demise in a couple of years, potentially.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, and that's baffling, isn't it? Because we've been, you know, I don't know, must have been fed information somewhere along the line if that's how you live your life. You know, you get your job, you get your mortgage, you bring up your kids, and then when you get 70, then it's time to enjoy life. It's bizarre actually how that's such a ingrained belief in actually 95% of the entire population.
Yeah, maybe more. Yeah.
Crazy.
But definitely with him saying that stuff, because so he was at the mindset, what he meant was grind young now that you don't need a retirement, that you can retire yourself young. And part of me I was 22, you know, living this life, but I wasn't done. I had barely just begun. You know, I still had a lot to learn, a lot to face, a lot of struggles, a lot of different jobs that I would potentially go through. And at this point, I really started to miss my time with the Burmese hill tribes, cycling Vietnam, trekking the Indian Himalayas. And on each of those adventures, I always finished them very surprised as to how much I could actually push myself. You know, I think as humans, we're far more capable than we give ourselves credit for, right? And I was kind of like, well, how far can I push myself? And then I started to think of very extreme adventures, remote locations that no one really talks about or nobody really goes to. And I was on the travel route for 2 years. The main point of topic was travel, you know, in different countries that people were going to, because I was teaching tourists that would want to go for a scuba dive just to tick off their bucket list. The main topic of conversation is, where have you been? Where are you going? And no one mentioned Mongolia. No one was mentioning this place. It's like the heart of Asia. It's a big country.
You don't hear people talk about that.
You don't really hear of Mongolia.
There must be a reason for that, I guess. You're going to tell me.
Right. And I was just like, what is this? And I started to look more and more into this place. And, you know, it's one of the world's most sparsely populated countries.
Okay.
It's home to the Altai Mountains, to the Gobi Desert, to the Mongolian steppe.
What's that?
The Mongolian steppe is kind of like rolling meadows and hills of grassland. It just goes and goes and goes. And these are like the steppe that Genghis Khan used to ride with his army, you know, horseback. They would just go for like miles and miles and miles. It's just no man's land. It's empty land. And then you've got the eagle hunters in the west, where they'll literally go out on horseback, these guys will, with an eagle perched on their hand, dressed for -20, -30 degrees Celsius conditions, and they'll set off this eagle, and this eagle will hunt down fox or even things as big as wolves, you know. And then you've got the reindeer tribe up north, and I'm just like, this is an extreme. You've got the desert storms of the Gobi, and I was just like, yeah, maybe, you know, the infrastructure to travel around Mongolia is nothing like Thailand or, you know, Southeast Asia or Australia or many other countries, and I think that's why many people weren't going. But it also didn't open for travelers. I think it was 2010 or 2008 is when it first opened.
Right.
So people weren't familiar.
Why did they have it closed?
I don't know what the reason. I think I knew back in the day, but I kind of forgot what it was now. I'll have to look into that. But I know, I don't know if it was the danger or, maybe just the politics of what was going on there in terms of, the views at that current time. Don't know who was running the country at that current time. But it was a little bit like Myanmar in a way, where Myanmar, they were shut down until 2012. Which, you know, it's bad that I keep mentioning on podcasts, but that was part of the reason why that adventure with the guy with the machete in Thailand was pretty illegal, because not only did I cross the border without a visa, but it was when it was fully shut down. Like no one could go there. I think it opened to outsiders in 2012. And I was just there with a machete in the jungle, like, woo. But,
so when you was learning about Mongolia, obviously this isn't your usual, you know, travel book that you pull out. You know, you're talking about history. You're talking about things that other people aren't aware of. Do you have also an interest to learn about countries and their origin and the things that make them unique as well?
Yeah, I do. And I always try to go that extra mile to learn a little bit of the language as well.
Wow.
I've always, like, I still remember the Mongolian one, but I remember the most important.
I guess you'd have to, right? Otherwise you can't communicate with them.
Yeah.
And we weren't at a time where you could get out Google Translate at that point, I guess.
No, you couldn't do that. None of that. And so it was only very basic stuff. I did actually have to carry a laminate piece of paper around with me, written out in Mongolian, sort of what I was doing. So
water.
Yeah, Tanadid Usugno means, do you have water, please?
Right.
And I would have spent 5 weeks of that journey in the Gobi Desert, completely alone and unsupported. So, and again, I've not forgotten it. Almost 10 years old.
What if you had to learn 3 phrases that you knew were absolutely essential to any adventure trip? I'm guessing one of them's water.
Yeah.
What would be the other 2? Random question.
The other 2, one that I can relate to was the Yangtze journey, Juli Yo Shongma, which means, are there bears here, in Mandarin. So that's the second. And I've not forgotten these
That's
2.
important.
And the wolves. I was
going to say, have you got a toothbrush?
Can I have some ketchup, please? Yeah.
Where's the nearest bar?
Yeah.
Never gone. So there's bears. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it was all very survival, but which was funny because, you know, once I would then end up getting to a town or a city, I couldn't even order food. I couldn't even ask for ketchup.
But you
in
could
Mandarin.
say, are there bears around
but
here?
I could say, where are the wolves? Or, are there bears here? Which was insane.
So take us through some of the adventure of the wolves and the bears and all sorts of things like that.
Okay, yeah. So with Mongolia, I started to look at walking 100 miles. I was bored of my life in Thailand. I was like, I need to do something. Let's take on another big adventure. Let's make it not a cycling trip, because where there's cycling, there's roads. And where there's roads, there's people. That means there's water. That means there's food. You're safe. If you're on a road, you're safe. You know, support crew can follow you. You're safe. And I was kind of like, I've done cycles. I've done treks along road, hitchhikes, all of that. What can I do that's fucking extreme, that's out there, where I'm self-reliant, relying on myself to survive my way through? And I was looking at maybe 100 miles of Mongolia, maybe 200 miles. And then I realized, why not just go for its full length, 1,500 miles from west to east.
So you was going to do 100, but you decided to do 1,500.
I was looking to cycle from Thailand, which I realised I would have died trying to cycle to Mongolia and then hike across it. Cheap bike, cycle from Thailand to Mongolia, and then walk like a 200 mile journey. And then I was kind of like, no, I need to fly to Mongolia because it's the Gobi Desert that I'd be facing, you know. And then, I don't know, I was thinking maybe north to south, which was a few hundred miles, or more, maybe 600-700 miles. And then it just kept growing bigger and bigger. And then I was just like, right, let's turn it into an actual mission. Let's walk the entire length, Didn't know it was a record at all, wasn't interested in the record. I was just, again, that human development, that hardcore sort of survival
Was you
element.
on your own at this point, or did you have people with you?
I asked my friend to come, my friend who had done, the same one. He was also a scuba diving instructor. And I remember, we were in a hostel one night. We were still living in hostels. And I told him all of the dangers that we're going to face, and he just never spoke about it again. And he was
Did
like,
you ever meet people in the hostel and they're like, oh, we're going out in the waterfall tomorrow, we're going to go get some pictures, and then he's like, oh, we're going to be walking, the entire length of Mongolia. And did they sort of give you a little laugh or a snigger or whatever?
Yeah, I think
Did you ever get any of those naysayers?
Loads. Oh, so many. Yeah. And I think it's when I realised...
People that try and maybe convinced you out of it as well, like, don't be stupid,
loads.
You're crazy, you're going to get yourself killed.
Once I actually planned the route, and then I took it to the UK to ask for help, like Royal Geographic Society. I then took it to locals in Mongolia, because if anyone's done this, they can provide me with the right contact so that I can ask what the dangers are. I reached out to logistics managers, and there was a guy called Rob Mills who was like, fucking knowledge of Mongolia was off the charts. And we then started to do extensive research to find people who had done a solo and unsupported journey, because the nomads, they've walked across Mongolia for thousands of years, but they've always done it in a close-knit community with family or with friends or with yaks, whereby it's supported, or with camels, whereby it's supported. It's regarded reckless and dangerous, and there are more wells now than there ever would have been before. And you need a structure like a trailer to pull. You can't do it by just a rucksack. And back then we didn't have the capabilities to build such a good sort of mild steel wheeled trailer. So we would need yaks, we would need camels. And we were like, okay, so to do it solo and unsupported, someone would have had to have done that in like the past 50 years, because thousands of years ago, they wouldn't have done it. It would have been horseback, it would have been camels, yaks, or with other people. And so we then came across someone who had attempted, a British guy, a soldier, a desert explorer, who attempted 3 times but failed on all 3 occasions. And I remember finding the contact to this dude, and I reached out, hey buddy, very amateur. I was only 21,
I can
22.
imagine. I can already imagine what this guy's going to be like.
Right.
He's going to tell you can't do it.
Yeah. Kind of. Yeah.
Because obviously that's a big blow. If you tried it 3 times and you haven't succeeded,
and then you've just got
in your mind it's impossible.
Yeah.
In their mind it's impossible.
Yeah.
And of course they're not going to want to admit that they weren't able to do it. So instead it's easier to accept that it's not possible. So, but anyway, I'm just guessing. But tell me this.
Yeah. And this guy, he was fucking hardcore. He looked like Jason Statham.
Okay.
He had crossed the Sahara Desert. Like, it just took a caravan of camels with him. And off he went. He's nails, And this already, I started to generate doubt and fear. Of course, I reached out to him, what are the dangers? Nice guy. He responded. He said, you've got to look out for the drunken nomadic drifters, the dry wells, the stagnant water, the snow blizzards, the sandstorms, the grey wolves, the steep ravines, and the list went on and on.
Tell me about drunken nomadic drifters, because we're not talking about your usual nomads, I guess.
Yeah, so that was the first I heard of them, and then I brought it up to my logistics manager, Rob, and often you'll have a nomad who is on horseback, and they get really cheap Russian vodka there, and they'll drink themselves to oblivion, and their main sport is wrestling. They can be aggressive. They're big,
That's
strong
crazy,
guys.
because when you hear of a nomad nowadays, you think of a laptop entrepreneur from Bali.
Yeah, right.
You don't think of someone drinking vodka that's about to wrestle you.
Yeah, exactly. So a drunken nomadic drifter specifically, you come across them and you just.
So what did you do? Did you come across any?
I came across one guy. Yeah. And I remember him sort of mumbling words to me, but he was so drunk he fell off his bike. Wasn't going fast. Like he was at the point where I felt safe, because I'm like, right, he's not doing shit. He can't even stand up. Yeah. And he'll probably go back to his gur, which is his white felt tent, where his wife will probably.
It's lucky that you were in a coherent state, because obviously if you're in that delirious, sort of like sleep deprived state, you would have been in a similar sort of position, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So it's they were. So I got a list of dangers really, and that. It put me off, but what put me off more was at the bottom of his email to me, he said, remember, incredible is the ability to continue no matter what. And I never understood that. And I remember I was a Muay Thai fighter at the time. I remember training in Muay Thai, and I would use that quote I would try to, one, understand it, but I would also try to, what is he saying that what is he saying, that you've got to be incredible to complete it? Because no one and nothing is incredible. Is that his nice way of saying it's impossible?
Sounds to me like he was kind of saying, don't ever give up.
Yeah, or is it that? And I was thinking, this guy's faced it. Should I be doing this? He's literally just said incredible is the ability to continue no matter what. Like, he knows what I'm about to face.
Is he also saying, you could lead yourself into death and be prepared for that, in a sense? Like, essentially, it's like no matter what.
Right, so many question marks.
Yeah.
I was just like, what does it mean? What does it mean? And I figured out sort of what it actually helped me in the middle of the Gobi Desert where I almost died. Well, we'll get onto that. But I remember that's
kind of good
when
that
I
it
was
subjective in a way, because you can make sense of it, and in whatever moment you needed that.
Yeah, and I left it as that. I didn't get back to him and be like, "Oh, what do you?"
Okay, so I was wrong about that guy. In a way, he was actually quite supportive, and
I think so. And what was even more supportive is once I returned, he actually congratulated me and said, "You proved that it was possible. I like to think of myself as the angel sat on your shoulder." I was just like, wow. So, because I don't know, when you face such a challenge like that, and I'm sure he would have faced potential death on that journey multiple times if he attempted it 3 times. I think maybe there would have been potentially, I don't know, but maybe that ego. He can't do it. I don't want him to do it. 22-year-old Muay Thai beach bum. How can he do it? But then I think once he saw, he was probably like, there's no cheating that. That has to come through sheer hard work and grit to be able to get through. And
this is the one you broke the world record for?
Yeah, that was my first world record.
And you didn't know until they told you?
No, that was
a shocker.
Yeah, I didn't know until 2-3 months before I set off for the journey.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was already planning it. It took me about 6 months to plan.
I bet that was a motivator once you were kind of
majorly
away.
Yeah,
because you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna make history.
Majorly. Yeah, because I wanted to check. I'm very thorough with these records that I attempt. I want to make sure that I'm not stealing anyone's credit who has done it before and hasn't gotten credit for it. Because I wasn't so bothered about I wasn't thinking a career at this point. This is why. I wasn't bothered about the walking across Mongolia solo and unsupported, record or not. It's fucking hardcore.
And you did this with your mate? Did he get to the end as well?
No, this was solo and unsupported.
Oh, right, okay, I was going to say.
Yeah, this was that. So this was it. If I did it with a friend, it wouldn't have been a record.
Right.
Because many people have done it. Loads of people, nomads, they travel all the time, thousands of years all across.
What makes it so much easier with somebody?
I think
not losing
it's
your mind or something.
It's more to carry. It's safety in numbers, especially for the wildlife. And it's 2 minds, right? So you're able to help navigate to the next water source.
One can sleep, one can protect. And
yeah, well, and it's just having that extra person with you,
True. So it's very much a mental thing as well, isn't it?
It was all mindset. That journey, it really scared me, and I won't act like the hero. I was having nightmares before I set off for that journey. It was
during
horrific.
And after as well, I should imagine.
Afterwards, I was young, so I bounced back fast. But before, I just remember, having nightmares, a pack of wolves surrounding me, or being dehydrated, burning, my skin bubbling because I'm just in the middle of the desert. I had no evacuation plan. My insurance was invalid. This expedition, I can be honest, right here, right now, cost me no more than $5,000. That's with flights, that's with everything. Probably one of the world's cheapest world records ever. I had no money. I moved back from Thailand to Wales in with my parents with £200 to my name because I sold my scuba diving kit. I couldn't afford gym membership. My uncle dropped me off a tractor tyre and a sledgehammer. I trained in my back garden for the world record. I couldn't afford a factory to build a decent trailer. It was a family friend, Paul McDonald, who in his back garden, he built me a homemade mild steel trailer. Couldn't have a carbon fibre one, so mild steel meant that on an empty load, it was 40 kilograms. On a full load, it was 120 kilograms, 18 stone, same weight as Tyson Fury, effectively. And that's the only way that I could survive this journey. I couldn't do it by backpack.
And just to quickly put this in perspective, is this the one that was 4,000 miles, right?
No, this was 1,500.
Oh, this is 1,000.
This is the first record, which was in Mongolia.
Right,
yeah.
so this is 1,500 miles, did you say? Okay. So this wasn't even the biggest.
This wasn't the biggest.
Right.
No.
But did you face any danger along that way?
Many, yeah. I faced snow blizzards, sandstorms, but I think I know that the most dangerous element was the Gobi Desert. And I had Russian maps that dictated confirmed and unconfirmed water sources. And along the way, there was an unconfirmed water source. And each unconfirmed water source that I came across, I would need to make sure I would double up on the previous confirmed. so that it could last me to the next one. But it's easy said than done. To paint the picture, it's 40 degrees Celsius. There's no breeze. There's no shelter. There's no clouds. There's just nothing. My only shade was to hide underneath my trailer that I was pulling behind me. It was a mix of gravel and soft sand, so the thin tires were now sinking in that soft sand. It felt like pulling a concrete block through hell.
Wow.
And I was gradually slipping into dehydration.
You must have used that line in your book.
Yeah.
It felt like, I think that's a good line.
Oh, yeah.
A concrete block through hell, that really painted a picture.
Yeah.
So was there times where you was absolutely gasping for a drink and then you'd get to a water source and realise it was unconfirmed, i.e. not there?
Yeah.
And like, fuck, can I make it to the next one?
Fucked, yeah. And my evacuation plan, it wasn't sort of helicopter pickup, couldn't afford that. It was overland transport. So I would need to allow at least 4 to 6 days for my agent to drive from Ulaanbaatar, the capital city, to me in the Gobi Desert. This is if he finds me in time and that the GPS is reliable enough. And then another couple of days to get me to out and into. And so at this point, once I'd reached an unconfirmed water source, I was already slowly slipping into dehydration for weeks. I realised even in the Altai Mountains, I wasn't taking in enough water because it was minus 20 and now I'm plus 40. My organs almost felt dry.
Piss in the whole time you were there.
It was horrendous, yeah. My organs were drying up. I was delirious. I was hallucinating. I was hiding under my trailer for a good hour at a time. And it was at that point I realised that if I don't keep getting up and pushing on, I'm going to die out here in the desert. And that was that was almost sort of shock of capture.
That was kind of a blessing in disguise, though, in a way. I should imagine not having that exit plan, because if you had had the helicopter support, were there times where you think possibly you would have taken that?
Yeah. I will only ever know if it happened to me in that time. Because I was in, like, it's funny because I tried to explain how difficult that bit was, but I'm such a positive guy that, it doesn't make me cry. I don't sort of, it never has. It's just matter of fact. I'm very logical of, I was thinking about my family, about my friends. I was under the trailer. It was the realization, like the actual real realization of the panic and the shock of, fuck, I might die, And I think it was the fact that I only had one option, and that was to keep getting up and walking. Otherwise, I will die.
Did you think of that guy's message that he said?
Yeah,
in the email.
I did. You know what? And I thought, if someone was incredible, what would that do in this scenario? And of course, as I said, there's nothing that's incredible, but I almost personified incredible. And I said I was delirious. I was a little bit out of my mind, but I could almost visualize this thing getting up out of the trailer sooner than me, walking quicker than me. And then I would almost try to mimic. I almost try to create a role model out there that I could follow in the footsteps of. And I almost remember something getting out the trailer, walking on, and me trying to keep up. And I couldn't keep up. He kept going and going. But effectively, what I came to do was I had 4 whole days to the next water source, sort of rationing the last remaining dribbles of hot water that I had left. Yeah. But whilst I couldn't visualize 4 days, I could visualize 100 meters. And so instead of staying under the trailer for an hour, I would time myself to stay under the trailer for 5 minutes, get up and walk for 100 meters. That's all as I could do. I was very skinny at this point, and the trailer felt like 500 kilograms. Lactic acids would kick in. I was slowly dying. My urine was pretty much black at this stage. It was horrendous. But I was walking 100 meters, hiding for 5 minutes, 100 meters, 5 minutes, and I was slowly getting there. And this personified incredible figure was getting further and further away. But effectively, maybe it was a little bit of that quote. Maybe I should let that guy know that actually that quote really sort of helped to.
He deserves a bit of
to push me on there. That. Yeah, and maybe that's what he meant. The angel sitting on my shoulder.
Yeah. And it's just interesting why I mentioned if you had that back out, would you have used it or at least contemplated it, which would have created that doubt.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of the expression burn the ships. It was like an old sort of war. It's a real story, but I can't remember exactly where it was, but they were going for war, and there was a set of soldiers that were about 1/10 of the size of the army they were going to defeat.
Right.
And the comrade, the captain, whatever the name is, I'm not sure of the hierarchy, but kind of said, there's no way, we have to get through these people or we're going to lose the war. And the only way is to defeat them and get through to the other side on land. So he burnt his own ships to the ground. So there was no way out.
Whoa.
So they would either die there
Yeah.
on the beach, or they would go in and fight and win the war.
Wow.
And they did go through and they won the war. I'd love to know who that actually was, because
Crazy,
it'd bring a bit more
right?
credibility.
Yeah.
But having the ships there,
Yeah.
if you
It
have
gave them
them
that.
and it gets a little, gets a bit
So
tough, they run backwards.
Yeah.
You didn't have the ship, did you?
No, and in that element, it's do or die, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it probably, because I think we've all got that survival instinct in us, right? And I think people will be surprised at what they're actually able to do if they take all options away. If you give someone the scenario that you're going to be in the middle of the desert, out of water, horrifically suffering with heat stroke, which is usually fatal, and you can either sleep under your trailer and just die, or you can keep getting up and pushing on, but you're going to have to pull 500 kilograms effectively behind you through the desert in that sun. Can't do it at night because you've got to follow that little tiny track which will lead you to the next water source. So nighttime, you're going to lose that.
I mean, I've got a good mindset, but I think I would have been dead after 20 miles.
But then you don't know. you might get through it. But
I'd have been like, do you know what? I'm just going to die quietly under this.
Yeah, fuck
20
this.
miles in, I'm like, I've come as far as I can go. Don't care what you said in that email.
Yeah. Rob, come and collect my carcass. I'll see you in 6 days.
So you completed this one. You did a world record. When was the time for the next bigger one?
I think
why again?
Yeah, I think that was only 2 years. Not even 2 years between Mongolia and Madagascar. Got a feeling it was just over a year, actually.
Is this the lonely snow leopard that's coming into play here?
No, that was Mongolia. So with Mongolia, actually, the reason, I'll tell you how that started. Quickly tell you how that story came out. So I reached a community. This was before my stint in the Gobi Desert. This was as I was breaking out of the Altai Mountains. I was on like week 4 and I had signal. So my logistics manager called me on my little satellite, and he was updating me saying, "Oh, your name is becoming known here in the capital," which was a surprise to me because I didn't have a budget for PR. I didn't, there was no PR, there was no team. It was me and my dad. My dad was sorting emails when he was back at home. We're now fully working with each other, which is nice. But I was like, okay, great. What are they saying? And it's like, well, they've come up with a nickname with you, like in the papers, on TV. They're calling you the Lonely Snow Leopard. And I was like, fucking hell, it's a pretty savage name. I like that.
Yeah, did you not think about calling your book that? I mean, Mission Impossible was cool, but the Lonely Snow Leopard, that's got to be another.
Right.
Keep that one, get that one trademarked.
But I asked him, I was like, why the Lonely Snow Leopard? And he put it bluntly, he says, because you haven't yet been eaten by the wolves. And the snow leopard is the only other predator that the wolves don't attack. And I was like, oh, still in the Altai Mountains. I don't like how you said yet. I was just like, okay, no. I was thinking it was a cool name, but I think they mean it as like, how is he going? So, as I said, solo. If you were with 2 people, it's a different ball game. Same thing happened in China where we were followed by a pack of wolves. We'll get onto that, but there were 2, so they didn't come close. 2 of us. But with this one, they never really approached. Maybe it was the extension of my trailer. Or maybe they just saw it as a risk because, they don't often attack humans, but they can. But yeah, they nicknamed me the Lonely Snow Leopard. So I was like, that's pretty cool.
I'll take that. Yeah. Hashtag.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, the next one
was a 1,600 mile, 155 day journey south to north of Madagascar via the interior, summiting the 8 highest mountains. Wow. Held at gunpoint by the military, had to avoid the bandits, contracted the deadliest strain of malaria,
I saw that.
Crossed crocodile-infested rivers.
Did you think you was going to die there with the malaria?
Yeah, with the malaria, yeah. I was 3 hours. I reached the city 3 hours, the doctor said, potentially before slipping into a coma.
So how did you know you had malaria, or were you just very ill and you just?
I was so bad that it was very similar signs and symptoms to what I faced in the Gobi Desert. So I was kind of like, is this heat stroke? And I thought it can't be because I'm drinking lots of water. I'm taking in my salts and sugars. But we rocked up to a small community in the middle of nowhere, and where there was people, that meant there was food, there was water. So we would always, gravitate towards a community because they would look after us usually. But this one community said, you can stay here but you've got to go straight into your tent because the community is currently suffering with bubonic plague, an ancient disease.
Is that worse than malaria, I should imagine? It sounds like...
No, malaria is much worse. But
okay.
The reason it's crazy is antibiotics gets rid of the plague. We don't have it in here in London, but do you remember we used to have it in the UK? The Black Plague. Yeah. And it's crazy that it's still... Yeah, it was.
I mean, I actually, because it's obviously so long ago, we don't really look into things like that usually, but I think I read that it wiped out 80% of Europe.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And that's when the antibiotics came along, right?
You
and
think
that's
about
all you
people
needed.
that are going crazy about COVID, and then compared to the plague.
Right.
It's just like nothing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Crazy.
Yeah. And so they said stay in your tent because there's the plague and there's dogs, there's cats that have fleas. And so I was just like, fucking hell. I did get warned by my local logistics manager that there are communities, the plague is still here in Madagascar, which was mind-blowing. But I stayed in the tent. They bought us food, and the food was eel and rice, but the eel smelled a little bit off, a bit funky. But I was starving. Me and my guides. I had guides for this as well. I had one guide with me in the south, a different guide for the middle, and a different who knows the northern jungle. And so we were eating this eel, and for the next few days we were suffering with diarrhea. I think the anti-malarial pills went in one way, out the other, and I didn't have the full strain protecting me. And I tell you for why, because I actually contracted falciparum. That's the deadliest strain. There's 4 different strains. The 3 lower strains aren't as deadly, but they are with you for life. They're in your system.
Did you think you was going to die?
Yeah. But the deadliest strain, falciparum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
You're used to death. You're used to facing
silly,
death now.
isn't it? It's silly. Yeah. Yeah, I think I've faced it over. Yeah, too many times. That's why I want to risk my life less moving forward.
Yeah.
But falciparum, it can kill you within a day, 24 hours, and you're dead potentially. But if you catch it in time, it's the only one that you can eradicate out of your system. So I like to do the positive, negative.
Yeah.
And negative was, yes, it was the deadliest, but positive, I don't have malaria.
So was you a quick recovery from that then?
Yeah, it was actually 8 days to recover. Nice. But I do remember
Did you have an after effect of it, or was you like,
no.
I'm pumped full of IV, I'm ready to go?
Yeah, it was that. I remember I lost, I think it was like 10 kilograms in a week because of that medication. But I had to walk for 5 days. Even though it kills you within 24 hours, I was walking for 5 days with malaria because I still think that the anti-malarial pills, because I was taking anti-malarial pills, but they were still working. But had it not been for that eel, I probably wouldn't have caught malaria. I think it was the eel that, it did something with the anti-malarial tablet and just didn't have the full protection, but enough protection that I needed to walk to the next community, which had overland transport.
At that point, when you had malaria, I guess, I'm making assumptions. Did you have the thought of, okay, time to call it a day? I was fucking devastated. Yeah, I remember with malaria thinking, how do I tell my family? And I was not educated on malaria either. I didn't really know what it meant. I just knew that it's like one of the biggest killers in the world. Like millions per year die still in Africa from the mosquitoes, transferring malaria. And I was just like, and I always thought that if you've got malaria, that's it, you've got it for life. Right. So I thought, this is going to affect future adventures. And at this point, I was only month 1 into a 5-month journey. Right. And I was just like, and then, I think it was quite toxic, the medication that I was on, because I started to think evil thoughts as well. Really? Yeah. When you say evil, can you divulge? Yeah, I hated everything about Madagascar whilst I was suffering with the malaria. Whilst I was on that medication, I hated the people. I was just angry. I was very angry, very toxic. I just wasn't myself. And I just remember it was weird because it did the flip side. Rather than fucking hate this place, I'm out, I'm going back home, it took a different hit. It was like, I fucking hate this place, I'm gonna smash it. I'm gonna walk to the most northern point. I'm gonna do it in record speed. I'm gonna, now this is turning adversity into an asset, right? Right. Yeah. And so I remember thinking and looking back, thinking, fucking hell, there was no quitting me. There was just pure anger and hate. That went after 3-4 days. That's interesting. And I loved the locals again, and I loved the island, and I was in love with the country. You must have looked like some crazy foreigner in that bed. Yeah. Like, was you fuck off? Yeah. Like some sort of dementia, kind of withered. Yeah, it was bad. But I remember, I was getting back to the grind. I was doing push-ups. You still got malaria, but, I was getting better now. Okay. And I was bored in the hotel, and I was doing push-ups. I was swimming. I couldn't go to a hospital because I was infectious.
And so I had to stay quarantined in my hotel effectively.
And then once you was healthy, did you carry on?
And then I cracked on.
Well
I cracked
done.
on 2 days before I finished the
But
course
did
of
you
medication.
have, going back to the question, did you have a moment where you was like, I think I should stop this adventure? Did that ever come into your mind, or was you like, no, as soon as I'm better, I'm back off on my trip?
Yeah, I knew that the first focus was surviving malaria, because the doctor, she took my blood and she came back and she looked at me with these fucking worried eyes and said, "You've got falciparum." I was like, "What's falciparum?" She was like, "It's the deadliest form of malaria," and just malaria, And so maybe for a split second there was something there thinking, am I gonna die? Do I have to be evacuated? Helicopter to take me to mainland Africa? Do I need to cancel this trip? It was in that order. So the first thing I was asking is like, am I safe? Am I going to survive? And she said yes. And it was difficult because she spoke Malagasy, French, not English. So I was on the phone having to translate. But the guy I was on the phone with wasn't the best translator. So I was just like, look, am I going to die? And then they would send the phone back. It was, no, you've got falciparum. It's the deadliest strain, but you should be okay. What do you mean? This is my life. What do you mean should be okay? Do they need to evacuate me? And then, I'd pass it back over. No, but there is a helicopter on standby in Johannesburg should you need it. As the second world first, there was a bit more prep with this one. But then I think it was hours later then I realized that I am safe. I don't need evacuation. I'm in good hands and malaria will be gone in 7 days. I was like, what do you mean malaria will be gone? Like, it's out of my system. And I started researching, and my mum was frantic. My parents were terrified.
Get home, were they?
Yeah, they were like, what are you doing? This isn't a flu or a cold.
Yeah.
This is malaria. Get back. And I knew I was in safe hands. I was like, look, if the translation's good, everything works out. I listen to my body. I do as she says. They handle malaria every single day, multiple times, unfortunately. We don't handle it in the UK. And so I'm in safer hands here in Madagascar. Once I'm fully recovered, I will crack on and I will complete the mission. And I just remember that doggedness of being like, I will get this done. I still had the hardest to come.
And that wasn't the world record. That wasn't at that point, was it?
Madagascar was, yeah.
That was a world record as well?
That was the first person to hike the entire length of Madagascar.
So how many world records have you got?
3.
Oh, you got 3. So I was thinking 2. I thought it was 3 TEDx's. I'm getting confused with all
And
your accolades.
3 records.
So you got past that one. So you got another world record. So is now world record kind of a thing that you're aiming to be? Is that your thing? Or just as a byproduct?
I guess it was at the beginning. It wasn't with Mongolia. It became a record that brought on good things. And I was like, hey, I'm making a little bit of money here.
Okay. So
maybe I can turn this into career.
Right, okay.
Madagascar then became more of a statement piece. I wanted to be known less as the lonely snow leopard or less as the guy that walked across.
I'm sick of the lonely snow leopard identity. I need something better.
Yeah, which is interesting because being a businessman marketing, it's interesting because I then had to put my name out there to this brand, face brand recognition. I'd be like less of the person who walked Mongolia and more of Ash Dykes, this guy that does these records. And so it was only at that point I realized maybe I don't need to go back to lifeguarding or fish and chip shop or scuba diving, making pennies. Maybe there's a way. It's going to take a lot of work, and it fucking took a lot of work. But maybe there's a way that if I get my name out there, if I do these records, something that no person has ever done, like these weren't speed records, these were firsts, the first person up Everest or the first person to do this or that. These were 3 firsts. And so I was kind of like, if I can get Madagascar done, that would be my second. I'm potentially onto bigger things. And I could see the growth. Very small growth. I was still forced to live with my parents. I was still not making much per year. It was still a struggle. I was still trying to market without having the finance to put into PR. So I couldn't. All of the marketing was organic, straight through Facebook, Instagram. I think after Madagascar, this was my second record. I had 12,000 followers on Instagram. It's fucking struggling, but knowing this is my path, I have to do it.
Did some opportunities start coming in though, like sponsorship deals and things like that?
Slowly, enough to make me realize that if I keep pushing, it could be big.
Yeah.
I remember, school talks coming in and they would want me to present for free, or colleges. Or
so hang on a minute, I've just risked my life multiple times.
Yeah, and I was like, how do I, what's the transition? Is it really a bigger social media following will verify the records? Or is it TV that will verify the records? Like, what is it now? Because I needed to really sort of get my head around it, because I was just doing it for the pure love and pure passion of it. But then once I realized that, hang on, there's this element of
well, you need to make it sustainable as well, right? Because obviously you can't keep doing it with no money.
So effectively, I had to learn how to become a businessman. And I know many people won't like that. They won't like hearing that, because, adventure is adventure, business is business. But for me, it's 50-50, directly
100%.
down the middle. Otherwise, it is just forever a hobby, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's cool too. But I wanted it to be, my main...
bigger and better as well, because you can carry on doing the same push bike around Asia. But, if you want to take on these, crazy feats, it costs money. Yeah,
100%. And so at this point, I knew, right, I need to do... 2 records isn't enough, clearly. I need to do something much bigger, much better, that will change the game.
And that was?
The Yangtze River.
So tell us about that.
That's a nice segue into that, isn't it?
And tell us about the length first, because I think this one's the one that's pretty crazy.
This one was the stamp. This one was like, right, okay. This was a 4,000.
Did this make the others, on reflection, look actually pretty easy? I think that's a bit of a...
To plan, yes. But to do, I would say they were all equally hard.
Yeah, that was a bit of a naive comment.
Kind of like Mongolia was the mentally difficult, because that was my first.
I guess you're growing throughout. So although the achievements are becoming longer or more significant, actually you're growing with it. So they're just as hard.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why you're able to go bigger and better. It's not that it becomes easier. It would only ever be easier if it remained the same level of difficulty. True. So each one, it's still difficult. I think with Yangtze, it was duration. With Madagascar, it was just, honestly, I don't think there was one of the 155 days that was just a simple day hike. There was always something.
A bit of perspective, this was over twice the length of anything else you've ever done before.
Yes, this was 352 days a year.
And 4,000 miles, did I read?
4,000 miles.
Now, to put it in perspective, that's like 200 times the length of the marathon, right? Something like that.
Yeah, like more.
Yeah. Wait, so what's the marathon?
24 miles, is it?
24 miles. I said it's 20, so times that by 100, that'd be 2,000. So 100. Yeah, 200.
Jesus.
200 times the marathon.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, that's in one sitting, but you've obviously carried on going.
Yeah, and
because there are some people that have done, like I think it's Eddie Izzard that's done a marathon a day for a year or something, which was pretty crazy. But that's only 50 too.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
still only.
You say only. It's still difficult, but this is now where people get confused. So you've got a marathon,
but it's on a road with water.
You don't
and
need
food.
You don't need to take your flint and make a fire. You don't need to take a machete and hack through the jungle, because don't forget, some of those, especially in Madagascar, I would walk 16 hours. And I'd be lucky to do 1 mile, because it's machete in hand. I'm hunting, I'm climbing up the trees, I'm gathering. So it's a total different ball game.
Of course.
And I'm not saying it's harder, but it's one of those where
it's harder. But I'm just talking just purely length.
Yeah, pure length.
Like I couldn't. Well, that's just okay. I would find it difficult to do 1 marathon.
Yeah,
that's the
and
truth.
It's tough. Yeah,
doing 200 of them. I mean, I want to try and have a positive mindset, so I don't want to say anything like I can't do it. But realistically, I don't think
you want the training to be able to.
I don't think I'd be able to do it. But intertwining these things as well as various other things and mindset and all that, it's just it makes
and it's funny because the reason I say that is there's the people. There's quite a few different people doing marathons, and I'm always tagged in, which is great. I'm always tagged in their posts of them doing marathons, and it's like fucking their nails, solid, good for them. But it's totally totally different.
Did you?
Because they've got a van.
Were you wading through crocodile-infested rivers on your marathon?
Yeah, and it's not one of those where you want to get petty, but it's kind of I don't know.
I think you deserve the right to be like I took things to a different level. I mean, you've broken world records. I think you deserve to be able to say this is a step above that. Not diminishing any of their
because it's not. You don't want to come across a twat, because I think anyone that does a challenge, I have huge respect for.
Of course.
But when you're tagged in people who are doing a marathon a day, which is fucking great, but they're on a road with a van, with masseuses, they've got support, they've got safety, they've got food, they've got water. Like, take all of that away, take the road, drop them in the middle of the desert with a trailer, or the middle of the jungle with a machete.
Probably pull up at a hotel.
Make your own fire, get rid of all of your support. Your evacuation plan is exempt. You don't have insurance. You'll come across inhospitable locals. There are snakes, there are spiders. You've got to fend for yourself and eat that night. You're not counting your calories or your protein. You'll eat what you're given. You'll have to hack through bamboo shards if the bamboos come in magazines. So you hack the lowest point and that'll provide you with water. So you need to have that survival knowledge as well. And then totally different.
Talking about the food, so you
Yes.
was relying on donations from communities and things, right? Is that what?
Yeah, down south. Yeah,
Okay.
and then up in north, we would face the jungles. And so in the jungles, we would hunt tenrec.
What's that?
Tenrec is kind of like a small rodent, and they burrow themselves in trees.
How do you hunt them?
You stick your hand down the tree,
And just grab them.
and you just hope that there's a rodent there and not a snake or whatever. And
You
you pull
just
it out,
grab
and then
it
you can snap the neck, and then
Oh
you
my
in your
God.
backpack.
Is any of this documented in terms of footage?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I got the footage. It needs to be made into a documentary. There's a lot of
Yeah,
cool.
Why isn't that? Because you've had some TV time, right? You've done
Yes.
some stuff.
Ever since the Yangtze.
But you haven't turned it into a documentary yet.
Not the Madagascar one. And the Mongolia one, it was me and a friend back in 2017. We put on Amazon Prime. Alone in Mongolia, it's called. But it's not full production, that. It was all self-filmed because I was solo and supported. Madagascar was self-filmed. But, the
Did
footage
you get
isn't.
tons of footage for it?
I got tons of footage, yeah, but it's not been made into anything yet. That's what I mean about the struggle. I was just like fucking struggling. So, like, there was all of the footage. There was the world records. Now there was ×2. There was still nothing. And I was just like, what do you need to do to get that out there? It was fucking, it's difficult.
How did you feel when you completed because this was your third world record, so you completed it? Was
Yeah.
the finish line at some point was there? What was the finish line?
Yeah.
What did it look like?
Yeah, the finish line. It's funny because you start at over 5,100 meters, similar altitude to Everest Base Camp, and it's a small trickle coming out of the mountain, and that's the start of the single largest river in the world to run through a single country, right there. And then where it ends is the East China Sea. So this river is now 10 miles wide. It's got huge cruise liners on it, and it's pouring out into the ocean. And that's the end.
Wow.
And it's like you can step over it at one point, and then 4,000 miles later, it's like not an infant anymore. It's massive, and it's feeding 500 million in population, watering.
What was the finish line like?
Oh, epic, man. Yeah, fucking epic.
Did you dive in?
I did. I jumped into the sea. Yeah, I jumped into the sea. We had the British Consulate General join us. We had over 100 members of public. We had news channels. We had WWF.
Was you like at this point like Forrest Gump when he does the walk?
Pretty much.
Like,
Yeah. I was just this skinny wreck, bit of a beard. And at that point, I didn't really even have a rucksack because I didn't need it anymore.
It was like away a while ago.
Yeah, it was two different halves. The first half of the journey was pure survival. We had 10 of the 16 different members that were supposed to join me to capture for Nat Geo. They were all evacuated or abandoned the trip due to altitude sickness, fear of wildlife, or landslide. I remember I had a UK photographer who flew out, supposed to join me for 3 weeks, but he left after 6 hours of day number 1 because of a landslide. And so this river just kept chewing up and spitting out people left, right, and centre. And so a lot of it was self-filmed for that journey for Nat Geo.
But that's better though, I think, having that raw.
I think, having that raw, and honestly, some of the photos and the videos of people just on oxygen tanks or on beds, it was crazy. No one died, luckily, but it was getting too close, and it got to a point where I just shut down the mission. I was like, I'm going to have to stop people from joining me. Mm-hmm. And it got nothing to do with the distance. It had nothing. It was just the wild. It was the wilderness. It was the bears. It was hunting season. So the bears were coming off the mountains, looking for calories before they go into torpor season, which is kind of like their hibernation. And they were going into villages. They were attacking people. I was in a tent.
To be fair, probably done you a favour to be skinny at that point. Because they probably look at you and think, well, I could do something a bit better than that.
And you're not going to do anything against a bear, are you? I'm like, oh my God.
There's no point trying to have a fist fight with a bear.
Nothing. And these locals would gift me a knife. I'm like, look, I'm not going to do anything. It will ragdoll me. And then what is cool with the documentary as well, because we actually filmed this, is I remember approaching this valley, and there were some Tibetans, and they were warning us like vigorously against going down there. We didn't understand like why, because we didn't know what they were saying. But we filmed it all anyway because we thought, this is good. They look scared. Let's film it. And we were like, oh, thank you, bye. And as ITN, we carried on walking, And the next 2 days, we were followed by a pack of wolves, and they were staying in close proximity to us. They were almost like they were the other side of the hill. And normally they cover greater distance than people, but they were following and looking for any signs of weakness, because it's a hell of a risk for wolves to attack a person. Fast forward 6 months, and my production team in Beijing had the footage, and they looked through that stint, and they called me up and said, "You had no idea what you were saying?" I was like, "No." And he said that only yesterday down that valley, a local was killed by a pack of wolves. Do not go down there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Whether it was the same pack or not, we don't know.
But
Right. And we're, and we're like, Zaitian. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And so the Yangtze.
So how long ago was that you completed that?
That was the end of 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what's it been like since? Has there been any other missions on the horizon? Or?
Yeah. So after that, obviously it was big. We aired it on Nat Geo. We still haven't got. So the documentary was on National Geographic Asia, Africa, and Middle East. We've still not gotten it into the West yet, but the team is still working on it. So no one's really seen, other than people like if they go on trips to Dubai, they can view it and have viewed it that way. But we're still trying to get it into the West. I've had like zero support in the UK, and I don't mind admitting that now.
I'll talk about you after. I've got some contacts. See if I hook you up.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and so we were working on a new show, and that was The Great Wall. And we went out there. It was a good team. It was following over 21,000 kilometers of Great Wall. And with this, it wasn't sort of hunting, gathering. It wasn't survival. It was actually mixing and mingling more with the locals. It was a bit about the history, a bit about the locals, doing lots of different activities, from scuba diving the Great Wall, from being at the Shaolin Temple, to Mongolian wrestling, to cycling, to running, to a little bit of everything. And it really shows off the diversity. So that is a 6-time, 1-hour international TV show that is currently in post-production, soon to be aired. Now, this one, I'm pretty confident will secure the UK with this show. And if we do, that's going to be easier for the Yangtze show to break into the West.
Nice.
And so hard work
is that
pays
going to be
off,
the thing that's going to really give you that thing that you was looking for?
I think that's it then. That's
you've got it to a certain extent now, right? I mean, you've got lots going on.
Yeah,
but you're still waiting for that sort of big breakthrough in the West. Yeah,
I'm probably like yourself in a way. I brought it to a certain level, and most people would be happy, content, making it. But I'm always a beginner. I always feel like the beginner. I'm always trying to achieve bigger things, which I think is important.
Is there any other missions in the future?
Yeah, there's lots. Yeah,
because you're still young, right? I mean, you're 32.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at
my prime.
One of my other businesses that I have is a production company, actually.
Oh, okay,
nice.
And
we're going to be we're discussing a project at the moment with Ant Middleton. SCSC, who dares wins.
Yeah,
and he's got to be pushing 50 now, isn't he?
I think so.
It's around that age.
I think so.
So you've got a good couple of decades left in you. So what are you going to do with those decades?
As soon as we've launched this show, I want to speak with. There's some channels in the UK. I can't discuss the channels right now, unfortunately, but there's some channels in the UK looking to take this show, The Great Wall, and I want to sit down and discuss next projects with them, because I've got a good 4-5 ideas, 2 of which are world firsts. Okay. But I think with this now, it's taken that step similar to this Great War show where, there's that budget, there's that support, there's that valid insurance and good evacuation plan. Mm-hmm. Stop risking my life as much, but whereby the trips are still big, still ambitious, still extreme. But I think now we are focusing on taking it more to the mainstream with TV predominantly. That's the next step. And this is the first sort of, although we had Nat Geo in 2020, and we'll always have the support of Asia, and especially China. Mm-hmm. I kind of want to break my home country.
Yeah, of course.
This is 3 records. I'm British. I'm here in the UK. I'd like the UK TV channels to get on board. Make some big things happen.
Who's your sort of inspiration from the West? Do you have certain people that are doing? Obviously not similar, because you're world's first in some of this. But like your Bear Grylls or any of these people that you aspire to be like, or have you got any others?
Yeah, I would say it's funny because I guess the direction that I probably want to take it in would be sort of the younger Bear Grylls direction, I would say, whereby, he's not risking his life. His team is there, it's safe. I know they make out that it's not safe on TV.
A bit more television than it is.
Yeah, a bit more TV. Yeah, but I would like to bring the more extreme element and make it more journey form. So I guess if I had to point at anyone, it'd be sort of that direction. But at the same time, when I first started doing this, it came through lack of budget and wanting to create my own sort of experience. So there was no one, even when I was younger, that I looked to and be like, oh, I want to go in that direction or their direction. It kind of accidentally and organically slipped into this, which is
the best
good.
way, though, I think.
Yeah, because now I take inspiration from many different industries and categories, from the adventure world or from business people like yourself and your background, your story, where I can learn from you, take inspiration from yourself, or it could be the martial arts world, the McGregors, the Mayweathers, or it could be Richard Branson, Alan Sugar, totally different realm to what I'm in, but there's something to learn from everyone, and I think little nuggets of knowledge, of learning from people along the way really help you in your direction and path. So I look at more inspirational figures from a vast majority of categories rather than strictly in my niche,
And to sort of finish us off in terms of something that people can take away, I mean, it's hugely inspirational, your story, and we obviously had that very powerful line from the guy in the email, which will remind me of that one again.
Incredible is the ability to continue no matter what.
It's going to be hard to beat that one, and it's always difficult when I put you on the spot. But if you were to think of something else that you could share, that you've heard or you've discovered, that's going to help other people turn their adversity into an asset, or push through those tough times to achieve incredible things. Yeah. What would you say to anyone?
I would say
you can look directly into the lens.
Yeah, I would say there's two things. I think what's important is developing this quiet determination and cheerfulness to just keep going, and regardless of the setbacks, just never giving up. And I would always say that, no matter what you face, what direction you're trying to head in, your career, your path, your university degree, whatever you're trying to get, it doesn't matter if no one else sees it for you, because what's important is that you can see it for yourself, is probably the two crucial, especially in Mongolia, when I had so many people much more experienced than myself who had been to Mongolia. They simply told me it's impossible. You're being stupid. You're going to die out there.
Is that why you called the book Mission Impossible? As a big
statement. Yeah, exactly.
What was that you said?
Yeah, 100%.
See my book?
Yeah.
So, I mean, so what just lastly, tell us a bit about some of the other things that are going on, things that are happening with you right now that you want to share that are coming up, and where people can find you and things like that to learn more. Yeah, sure.
If people are interested, it's just Ash Dykes, and I'm on all of the social media platforms. Right now, I'm working on the Great War Show. Cannot wait to get that released. Yeah, I think towards the end of this year, the latest, beginning of next year, should be aired out on TV. And again, I'm just getting started. We've got more adventures, more expeditions, and I'm actually looking to release the exact fitness plans for Mongolia, Madagascar, and the Yangtze, because they were done all from.
Not drinking a load of Red Bull, is it?
Yeah, not this time. No.
Yeah, because people would be very interested to learn how you did that. Of course, there's a mindset element, but there's also a physical endurance part that has to complement that. Because there's many ambitious. I've heard a quote once that there's many ambitious and motivated people that are halfway up dead on Everest. Because you can have ambition, but it doesn't mean to say your body's not going to stop.
They go hand in hand. I think that preparing yourself physically helps to prepare you mentally, for sure. And that's what I would do when I was thinking of the snow blizzards or the grey wolves or malaria or dehydration. It all started in my back garden when I couldn't afford that gym membership, when I was flipping that tractor tyre, beating it with a sledgehammer, thinking of worst case scenario.
Think your course is going to be pretty empty. They buy your course, and they're like, right, all you got to do is get a hammer
and a tractor tyre,
and you're sorted. Do whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I'm sure there's more to it. Well, thank you so much for
it,
coming on. It's been an amazing, very inspirational story.
Good chat.
And well done for turning your adversity into an asset. And it's been a pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yes, thank you.